Thanksgiving break is over. Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. We are joined this week by the majority floor leader of the Missouri State Senate, maybe the hardest job in all of state government, Senator Caleb Rowden. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
It is an interesting thing. People look at the state Senate. It's very hard if you don't study it, if you haven't served it in and around it to understand how it goes. The floor leader, you decide what's debated and I guess for how long, correct?
Yeah. It's I say it literally is the best and worst job in the building. I mean, and it sounds like a joke, but it really is. I mean, it's a tremendous opportunity, huge responsibility, lots of ability to effectuate change, but it is, I mean, especially post-spring break, the last 3 months of session, it is a nightmare every day of the week.
Every senator's whose wife or husband doesn't get to see them and they don't get to call till 2 a.m. It's your fault.
It is my fault. Yeah. Well, and I always blamed it on former Senator Kehoe when I got home in my first 2 years of session. When I get home at 2 a.m., I get to blame him. Now I have no one to blame but myself.
Now people are blaming you. Right?
That's right.
Let's talk about a group that's getting a lot of blame. That's NCAA. You represent Columbia, Boone County, Missouri. You represent the University of Missouri flagship campus there in Columbia. There were some bizarre sanctions cast down, which kicked Mizzou out of a bowl game.
Yeah. It was one of those things that NCAA has been losing its credibility for a decade or more. People forget, or people maybe don't realize it's a voluntary organization, which means that's a blessing and a curse. In that the curse being they have no accountability to anyone at all, and so other than the member institutions, and the member institutions generally have kind of stayed in their lane on this thing. The sanctions were ridiculous. They were you put them side by side with Mississippi State, which had similar violations, did not self-report. Mizzou self-reported. Mizzou gets kicked in the teeth. Mississippi State gets nothing. North Carolina literally made up classes that were graded by a secretary. They got nothing, and they didn't self-report, and they fought it every step of the way. So it's just one of those things that the rationale for how they do what they do.
Why would any university ever cooperate with NCAA ever again?
They shouldn't. I hoped that I watched Jim Sturck's press conference post the decision being handed down, and they asked him, would you do anything different? And I hoped, if for no other reason, just kind of for show, to say, yeah, we would have cheated. We would have lied. Yeah. Because and the reality is schools are going to do that going forward.
I mean, looking forward, God forbid something happens at Missouri State similar, and there's an infraction.
Yeah.
If Lincoln Huff, who represents that campus, called you and said, what should I advise Cliff Smart to do, what would you tell him?
I'd tell him to hide under the rug,
lawyer
hide
up,
it under the rug,
nothing,
and lie every step of the way.
Let's talk about what we're talking about Mizzou, though. I've watched during your career in the legislature, very hard to represent Columbia, Boone County, the Mizzou system.
Yeah.
I've watched people catch you in the halls and do rants and raves. I think that's been a challenge, but I think the last few years, with all due respect, Moon Choi come in and has really done a turnaround. If this was a business, if this was any other entity, even as a conservative myself, sometimes academics are a little hard to choke down. But Moon Choi has done a heck of a job at Mizzou.
He is a truly unique, one-of-a-kind, generational sort of leader. My concern now is not his ability to do this job at a high level, it's our ability to keep him, frankly. And so, he is, people want in those types of positions, because he is a politician-ish, as it relates to his...
A lot of energy,
That's right. But they want someone who's genuine, someone who's humble, someone who's relatable. He is all those things. He said to me very early, I'm going to be the university's chief lobbyist, and I thought he was nuts, because I thought there is no way that you can do this, right? But he's done it, and he's done it effectively, and kudos to him for that.
Let's talk about something that a lot of Republicans aren't giving kudos to. It's Clean Missouri. I'm going to talk about two things. One, Clean Missouri took a bunch of ethics reforms that I don't think that many people had a problem with. Not many serious, upwardly mobile politicians really cared about on either side. And they incorporated a way to change the redistricting. Let me ask you this. There was a lawsuit. The court said it was legal to merge these things together in a question. What I hear Republicans complain about is taking an ethics thing and bringing in a redistricting thing. I do think those are separate issues, but in law, obviously they weren't. Is it not, take this particular Clean Missouri issue out of it for a moment. Going forward, is there not a legislative fix that some Republicans should consider to make the things you can put on the ballot very strict and keep them contained to one question?
Yeah, I think so, partly because it's the world in which we operate with Hammerschmidt, and I think that is good policy. I think it's good for good government. I think it's good for a average citizen's ability to understand what we're doing, and in this case, understand what they're voting on. I mean, clearly, Clean Missouri, I think was garbage for the most part, but it was done in a very effective way.
And it passed.
That's right.
And the public
That's right.
might pass the redistricting scheme on its own.
That's right. I think the problems with the redistricting thing are pretty hard to communicate to regular citizens who aren't engaged at that level, and so that's a tough messaging sort of narrative for us. I think it's bad policy because I think it really is going to have a detrimental impact to communities of interest. And so if we can find a way to not undo it, but make it better, I think that's something that we're pretty interested. Yeah, I think you can.
Well, what would that look like from the legislative? I hear about legislative fixes to Clean Missouri. Then you hear friends like our friend, your constituent, Chris Kelly. Well, the voters passed it. There's no need to fix it.
Yeah.
What would a fix or an improvement or a change from the legislature be?
Well, the first thing that I always push back to my friend and birthday mate, Chris Kelly, is if we do something, if we seek to make it better, the voters get to have their say on it as well. Okay. So it's not as though we are doing something that the voters don't get to have a look at, specifically as it relates to the redistricting piece. And so that part I'm not worried about because I can say, yeah, I think this is a better plan, and I can put my vote in front of something that says, I think this is better than what Clean Missouri was, but at the end of the day, the voters get to have the final say. So I just think it is a better fix is respectful of communities of interest, respectful of the idea that we have rural and urban Missouri. That's okay. Let's embrace that. Let's find ways to make sure that folks that live in majority minority districts still get to have a voice that is reflective of their needs, their desires, and their passions.
Nicole Gallo is a name that comes up because it's her office that is now going to get to do a lot of this. I don't think it did her any favors. I'm sure there'll be people that are mad.
And it was bad policy to put the biggest brunt of the burden of Clean Missouri on an office that really isn't supposed to be partisan in nature, right? I mean, I think that's just bad. That's bad policy.
She was appointed by former Governor Nixon. He did the deseg rulings when he was AG. Well, I think history has shown that was probably has looked on that favorably. Mm-hmm. It cost him politically.
That's right.
It seems to me like I doubt that she changes the House districts where you'd have majority minority districts affected, but you could move those Senate lines a little bit if they're not restricted by county. If you can kind of draw them however you want to make them competitive, you could change the makeup of the state Senate with one redistricting.
You absolutely could. And from my perspective, I think Republicans have the majorities in Jefferson City that they have because we're better at what we do. And because we have a better message. I mean, the idea that the modern Democratic Party, the pitch that they are making to the people of Missouri, and maybe this pitch works in California and New York, but the pitch is, we know that you don't like government, we know that you don't trust government, and we know that you don't trust politicians for the most part, but our pitch is that we want to make all of those things bigger. We want to make them more expansive in every facet of your life. That is the platform that the modern Democratic Party is running on. And it's the reason why Clean Missouri has to exist for them to be functional in our state, because that message in Missouri is not greeted well. And it's the reason why you've seen what you've seen, the huge shifting of the tides in statewide.
From the top of the ticket on down. Yeah.
And it is if I'm the guy that's preaching the message and trying to communicate a narrative that says, I know that you don't like the government, so I'm going to try to get it out of your hair as often as possible in a responsible way. If I'm that one, and the other one is I want to grow this entity, this bureaucracy that you generally hate, I like where I'm at.
Talk about the state budget for a minute. That matters uniquely to your district, being the center of the state, having the University of Missouri's flagship campus in it. There's a Medicaid expansion proposal that I would say right now looks very likely to pass. Mm-hmm. What does that do to the budget? And that would be the one thing Democratic friends of mine say, well, we have Democratic policies go to the ballot and they pass. We just don't win at the ballot box. This is a Democratic policy that right now looks likely to win.
Yeah, I think the contrast is very simple, and I don't think the folks who are advocating for it can push back against this. It is going to cost the state at a minimum $250 million.
Where's that money going to come from?
It's got to come from my backyard. It's got to come from K through 12 education. It just has to. There are no other. There are no realistic options. And so I think if the people of Missouri are adequately presented with the contrast of, yes, we are expanding Medicaid, but it is going to cost the state money. If they think it's going to cost the state money, if they think it's going to take money away from their K through 12 community schools, they're not going to vote for it. I mean, I think when we've seen that in some initial polling.
Will there be somebody to tell that message? Will there be enough money to give a contrasting
I
point?
think that's to be determined. I mean, I don't know. I can't say yes or no definitively as we sit here today, but I do think in this particular instance, there's no question Missouri is a fiscally conservative state, no doubt about that, and the legislature as well as the citizenry. And so I think if that message is communicated clearly, I think Medicaid expansion may have a tough.
Let's talk a little politics right now. You get the joy. I'm not seeing that many people smile about it to do congressional redistricting. It usually becomes more frowns and burden than it does opportunities. But right now it looks like the state's been on a similar pattern. You'll see a St. Charles County growth, some growth in southwest Missouri. Where do you see, you live in a place where Ike Skelton represented Columbia, then Jeff City, oscillating sometimes at the same time. It's been kind of where a lot of the lines change. Where do you see redistricting going right now?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The Southwest district gets smaller probably just because of the population growth there. So there's not a lot of fighting about where that expands to. I'm sure there has to be some changes in St. Louis and St. Charles County just because of how the population has moved and kind of migrated there. Personally, and this isn't really motivated by anything other than just common sense in my view, I'd love to see a Mid-Missouri congressional district. I think that seems to make sense. Mid-Missouri is unique in kind of who we are and what we look like and kind of some of our interests. So that would be interesting to me.
I think Sam Graves has shown, you take North Missouri and made it a congressional district, and I think that's come together pretty well.
Absolutely. And I think the reality of us just being aware of, again, kind of the community of interest conversation, us being aware of where those opportunities exist, and there's going to be some politics involved, but
sure.
let's try to keep it out of it as much as possible.
Lastly, there's a community of interest called the state of Missouri that has your predecessor serving as lieutenant governor. He doesn't have an opponent yet. Now, what in the world?
I joked with him about that the other day. He's just going to have to throw all his money in my Senate race. If
you know where he could invest that money if he didn't need to.
There's a couple good places. Yeah, I'm really excited about just the ticket as a whole. I mean, if you look at the slate from Governor Parson down, Lieutenant Governor Kehoe, and down the line, competent individuals, hard workers. I mean, if you follow them on Twitter, I mean, they're all over God's green earth, just working their tails off. Good fundraisers, really good, I think, communicators of the message of conservatism in a way that I think is relevant to the people of Missouri. So I understand why they're having a hard time fielding the ticket, partly because of, I think, the general kind of where we are as a state, but then also just the quality of our candidates.
Well, Senator, thank you. I hope you'll come back and talk about this as the campaign unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel, but first I want you to go to showmissouri.com. This week we're in Caldwell County, the side of the Mormon Wars. We went to Far West, got to talk to some good friends. Hamilton, North Star folks, if you have a quilt that you bought anytime soon, you probably got the material out of Hamilton, Missouri. Go to showmissouri.com on the history of the state, one county at a time. And then Wednesday, bringing back this the Stein of Knowledge, our weekly updates. Go to the This Week in Missouri Politics Facebook page. We're going to have a good time there on Wednesdays. Join us. We'll have a good time. We'll be right back after this.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association.
Your energy needs are changing. That's why at Ameren, Missouri, we're not waiting on the future. We're building it with the Smart Energy Plan, advancing thousands of projects across the state, helping reduce emissions through cleaner energy sources, boost reliability with self-healing equipment, and better withstand storms with new composite poles. Moving Missouri forward and bringing us all a little closer together. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to this week of Missouri Politics Opinion Maker Panel Time. New Alderman in the city of St. Louis, Tom Oldenburg. Welcome to the show for the first time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jane Dueker, friend of the show, welcome back. Can we fish an opinion out of you today?
No, I'm very reticent.
We're going to try. Dan Kleinsorge, a high-ranking person with the Missouri State Senate in Senator Schatz' office. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And Michael O'Donnell, State Representative of South St. Louis County. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Let's start off at the top. Your district, the 2nd Congressional District, Ann Wagner had a close race last time. Surprised some, but it was very competitive. We are now literally into December of the year before. The election's it's about 10 months away now, and she hasn't had an opponent. But Jill Shoup, someone you serve with in the General Assembly, has decided to file. It was a long, winding, odd road for Democrats to find a candidate. What do you attribute that to?
It was, and I think every day that Ann had went without an opponent was to her advantage. I think the nice thing for voters is, for a change, they're actually going to have a voting record. They're going to know where both of these ladies stand on the issues, and that gives them some real decisions to make. I just don't think Jill Shoup's politics play in South County and play in St. Charles.
Let's talk about that. I mean, it is interesting. The Democrat Party, I mean, they very publicly courted people like Amy Gunn. They publicly courted some gun rights activists, some, I guess, gun control activists would be the way to phrase it. She was the logical person, I think, from the beginning that you thought Democrats would nominate. It felt to me, just the simple hillbilly from West Butler County, that national Democrats came from Washington, not from Franklin County, but from Washington, D.C., and kind of muddled up St. Louis Democrats' plans.
Yeah, I agree. I think there were a lot of conversations that should have been hashed out far earlier.
Yeah.
I think, though, that her voting record doesn't necessarily bring a disadvantage. I think this actually might get Ann Wagner to engage. I mean, last election, she practically ignored that she had opponent and only won by 4 percentage points. This is a very poachable seat for Democrats. I think, Jason Kander lost by less than 1 percentage point to Roy Blunt in this district. So I feel like, there's a great opportunity for Jill, and she's evidence that she can raise money. So I think there's another competitive race on her hands.
Dude, she can raise money. She's
Yeah,
a very good
that's
politician.
huge.
She's won people forget, she beat Jay Ashcroft in that Senate
Yes,
race.
she did.
In the general election after the Ferguson turmoil.
Yep.
Jill Shoup's a good politician, but why wasn't this announcement on the 4th of July instead of Thanksgiving?
I mean, she was a no-brainer from the beginning, as far as I'm concerned. And I think her ability to raise money, her connections to the community, that district is winnable. And depending on how the top of the ticket goes, do we have Joe Biden? Do we have Elizabeth Warren? How does Trump do? I think that's going to have some effect. And depending on how that pans out, I mean, this is completely winnable. And Jill is a hard worker, and I think she will get out there. I think it's going to be her toughest opponent yet.
So I mean, to me, it matters. The top of the ticket mattered last time. Trump did not do as well as maybe some other Republicans could have done in that district. But it's about who Trump's against. I mean, if Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee, he could go to Arnold, he could go to St.
West
Charles.
County,
And I don't think that Jill Shoup would have to run from him, and it wouldn't damage her to be in a photograph with Joe Biden. Right. But you take Elizabeth Warren, I think Ann Wagner would fly her to Chesterfield herself.
I do think
that matters. If it was Bernie
matters.
Sanders, I think she would have her staff probably even piggyback ride from wherever the socialist conclave he's at to West County for a rally for Jill Shoup. I mean, how do you run with a socialist, a literal socialist?
Well, I think she could be adept at setting her own path. She's well known. That's the good thing about Jill, is this district knows her already. So I think her ability to distance herself would be easier than it would be for a no-name or someone who didn't know. So while I do think it will be in effect, I think she's probably the strongest candidate to be able to say that I can run on my own. And I will say, to me, these are two incredibly smart women. I mean, I really want to see this because this is a very good race. And I am excited to see both. They're both smart. They're both well respected. They're strong females. And so I look forward to that.
Dan Kleinsorge, you are very involved in campaigns. This is a seat that is in your backyard that you know a lot about. Republicans could absolutely lose this seat.
It's possible. You've got two highly skilled candidates, but I would never bet against the incumbent here.
But is that what this is about, though? To me, I always thought it was funny. If you have this huge primary and you nominate a man who may be right of the district, I think he would lose that seat. I think Ann Wagner is the one person in the state who starts this race in the lead. You tell me another person that could actually start this race as the clear favorite. I think maybe it's only Ann Wagner.
That's probably correct. I think she fits the district perfect.
So let's talk. Give me a prediction here. Nominee of the party is Elizabeth Warren. What's the margin in this race?
Oh, if Elizabeth Warren's the nominee, I'm going to go with 7 points.
What do you think?
Wagner 5.
I agree, Wagner 5.
I'm around 5 or 6.
Now flip that to Joe Biden.
I think
Winnable.
Jill wins by 2 or 3 percentage points.
What do you think?
Yep.
Wagner 2, but it's close.
Wagner 3.
Yeah, I think I'm the 2 to 3, but I think it may be even bigger if it's the opposite.
Ann works hard. I mean, she helped us down ticket people last go around. She works very hard.
Sure.
Dan, let's talk about clean Missouri, something that I'm sure you're going to hear so many times. I would assume by the time the Cardinals break camp from spring training, you're going to be so sick of hearing clean Missouri. I'm sure you're dealing with it even now. There's two things here. One, it was a very intelligent, well-done political campaign. Sean Nicholson, I still don't think gets the credit he deserves for putting this together. But you did take some ethics issues and merge them with a redistricting issue.
Yeah.
Is that not where Republicans look going forward? If you're going to have Republican supermajorities, just like in California where there's Democrat supermajorities, Republicans go to the ballot. That Democrats go to the ballot to pass things. Is it a little too broad of what you can put on the ballot right now?
Well, the court said it wasn't. I think
But going forward, is that where the legislature steps in and writes a law that says you have to make it more narrow?
that would be an entirely separate constitutional amendment dealing with just redistricting and the ethics issues with the legislature. We saw 3 pre-files on the Senate yesterday. You're going to see some House bills on it. It's going to be a major topic January, February, March.
Where does the debate break down in the Senate on what the changes are? I mean, what changes, fixes, depending on your perspective, do you think are actually going to be really when the deal is done? What are the issues they're going to be discussing?
It's all about the order of priority on redistricting. Where do you put compact contiguous versus partisan fairness versus any other issues like political subdivisions and breaking those lines? That's basically where the debate breaks down.
And currently, Clean Missouri takes competitive and jumps all over it's a trump card.
It puts competitive above just about everything. So you can split political subdivisions like municipalities and counties. We really don't know what that map would look like.
In the House, I know there are people that are spitting nails over this.
There are, but the thing is, we're going to offer an opportunity, an opportunity for voters to decide. That the spin has been that we're overturning it. We're not overturning anything. We're just going to offer voters an opportunity. I had a lady at the door say to me, "Oh, well, I like that you're taking some of the lobbyist stuff out of this, but what's this redistricting part? Can I vote for the lobbyist part and just not worry about the redistricting part?" No, she had to vote one way or the other, and she was drawn to vote, for removing the lobbyist influence in Jefferson City, and
hence the name.
And taking the.
I mean, I was one of probably the only Democrats who had issues with Clean Missouri, and one, it was billed as a lobbyist and the ethics reform, but the Trojan horse was the redistricting. And my concern always with it was, we have a different Supreme Court than we did when they started that project. And you had a Supreme Court that protected the Voting Rights Act to a much larger degree than you do now. And so this change scares me as a Democrat that we could be losing minority participation, we could be losing strong districts, it could be changing things in a way that the Supreme Court will no longer. I think they were relying on the Voting Rights Act to protect certain things that may not be there now. So I think looking at this is not a bad idea.
There are some Republicans that think Nicole Galloway is sharpening her pencil, excited about this to draw Democrat districts. I don't think that did Nicole Galloway any favors. If she's still auditor when this comes up, this is however this map is drawn, someone's going to be very angry about it.
Have you ever met anyone who's been happy with a map that's been drawn by anyone?
Yes, I
never have.
I agree with that.
I never
That's
have
how
met
it
a
should
person
be,
that
right?
has been happy.
Everybody should
So
be
that's not a great job for her.
You're a policymaker yourself at the city level. Is a little broad.
I think we give this a try, though. I mean, time and time again, the voters have told us that they want competitive and nonpartisan. That was the intent of that ballot initiative. Competitive and nonpartisan.
Now,
And
I think it was a good move, but was it really the intent of that?
I mean, overwhelmingly, Missourians agree with that.
I think people know about gerrymandering. I'm just not sure. I think the problem we all agree on.
Isn't gerrymandering like pornography? You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah, that's. Wow, didn't think of it that way, but thanks for sharing.
No, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Give me a prediction. Will there be a change on the ballot in November to change Clean Missouri?
I do not think so.
What do you think?
Oh, I think they'll put something on the ballot.
Will some get on the ballot?
Yeah, I think so.
We have to PQ it to get it there.
That I don't know.
Absolutely, it'll be on the ballot.
I think how quick does the House move something out?
It's tough to say. I was surprised it didn't move quicker.
I kind of was too, but maybe this year,
maybe this
in
year,
response to that, it's
yeah,
earlier.
maybe this year we've learned our lesson. Let's get it through and get it moving and get it worked out.
Jane, let's talk Medicaid expansion. Speaking of things on the ballot, this is the complaints about Clean Missouri don't exist here. This is pretty simple. Do you want to expand Medicaid? It'll be at a huge cost. Do the other people whose pockets will be picked by this in the budget, Do they come out and oppose this, or does anybody oppose it?
Well, I've not seen a sort of an organized opposition yet, so maybe that comes, but it's getting late. I also think that when you talk about shifting money here, expanding Medicaid, well, Medicaid is not for the population that's poor. Medicaid is for the insured population. Having Medicaid expansion actually protects everybody's insurance premiums and prevents them from paying a hidden tax. Not expanding Medicaid imposes a tax on people who pay for their health insurance, their employers. So I think it's time that we start getting our health care, and competing with other states and getting our health care paid for by federal dollars and not increasing our insurance premiums.
Senator Hageman, one of the nicest people in the entire state of Missouri, the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. I would think even you could get a scowl out of him if you talked about moving $300 million out of GR into Medicaid.
I think the school districts are going to be the most nervous about it, especially rural school districts. With
Will
their
they put up a
transportation.
fight, though?
That remains to be seen, but I think they're going to get more and more scared as the likelihood of it being on the ballot increases.
They can't afford to put up a fight. I mean, the funding politically is behind the pro-expansion. That's where the hospitals are putting their money. But the school districts don't have money to put up and say, hey, this is going to impact us.
I don't see the group right now. I see the groups that are impacted. I'm with you. I don't see the political will to fight this. And if there's no political will to fight this, I don't know how they beat it.
Right. No, you
rural
don't.
What do you think?
I think the politics of this has been interesting. The governor has signaled that he's been open to it and open to a vote taking place
I
on
would
it.
say this. I think there was some liberal journalist who would love to see Medicaid expansion or socialized medicine happen, that the governor said, I'll follow the law. And then they took it as he's for it. Oh, I think they would like to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's open to it, but does it take an issue away from Nicole Galloway, all right? Does it provide voltage on the ballot for her, being where it is? And maybe the governor saying, well, I'd be open to the people voting on it, sort of neutralizes that.
Representative, with a minute left, who won the week?
So my runner-up is State Treasurer Scott Fitzpatrick for making a great catch at the Chiefs game, catching a football. But my winner for the week is his wife Mallory, who did an awesome job of steady hand and iron nerves, catching it all on videotape.
No question. Who won the week?
Governor Parson, unemployment stays low, his re-election chances stay high.
I agree with that. Who won the week?
Jill Shoup. I mean, courageous to sort of, get beyond all the nonsense of kind of leading up to this and just doing it and being the strongest candidate we could
It's a fool to
offer.
underestimate her political abilities.
Yep, and she'll prove it again.
Who won the week?
Backstoppers, without a doubt. Day before Thanksgiving, record numbers came into the Enterprise Center in the city of St. Louis. They raised close to $700,000 for the fallen first responders' families.
I'm going to take the opposite from you, Jane. I think when you're a member of Congress in a competitive district and you celebrate Thanksgiving with no opponent, you won the week. So I'll say Ann Wagner won the week.
There you go.
Well, if all of you will win the week, next week, our last edition of the year, we'll have our traditional last show of the year guest, Eric Schmidt, will be here next week on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, SPIRE, and Sterling Bank.